Guess what, Dee?
What?
I won a new big planter from Crescent Gardens this week.
Cool. How did you do that?
Well, on the garden com that we belong to, I was the most
Yeah.
active on the community page. And so the winner got this huge, it's an 18-inch across, and it
Uh-huh.
has the water reservoir. So you don't have to fill it all the way with dirt because there's a place for water to be underneath. So you don't have to water it as often. And it came Friday. And it was all
Nice.
I could do not to run down to the greenhouse and just start buying stuff to put in it. And I thought, no, I'm going to wait and I'm going to ask my friend Dee, what would you put in there?
Would you put flowers, vegetables, or would you put herbs?
And then I also thought, well, what about tropicals?
Well, yeah, because that's all about leaves.
And anyway, I haven't really decided, but obviously, do you have any big suggestions for a midsummer planter mix?
I mean, if I was doing it here, I would probably plant blue days, which is a tropical that blooms blue, as one of my spillers. And I would probably put in, oh, it'd be really pretty is if you could find cardinal basil to be your thriller plant because, big green leaves with a big red thing at the top and it'd be cool. And then you could plant some scavola and white. And some coleus around the sides. I can make a planter. I could.
So I think what I'm going to do is go to the greenhouse this week and
Okay.
they've still got annuals and stuff, for people that are like really late or just suddenly got a new planter. And I think I'm going to pick some things that will just take me right into fall.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So why don't we also let that take us right into this episode?
You do that, Dee.
Welcome to the Garden Angeles, where we talk about flowers, veggies, and all the best dirt. I am Dee Nash from Guthrie, Oklahoma, where I garden on an acre and a half out of 7.5 acres out in the country.
And I'm Carol Michael from Indianapolis, Indiana. I have a suburban garden measured in square feet. It's about a third of an acre.
And we call ourselves Garden Angelists because we are evangelists for gardening. We love gardening and we really want you to love it too.
Yes, we do. And we aren't afraid to spill the beans and tell all of our gardening secrets, the good, the bad, and even the ugly. But that's enough of who, what, when, where. Let's move on to this week's episode. Hello, Dee.
Hello, Carol. So, what has happened in your garden since we last talked?
Well, it's been a week, and so I will tell you that I've mowed twice
Okay.
because I'm just trying to work around heat waves and the rain and stuff. Not that it really needed it.
No
I
one here, I just have to say, no one in Oklahoma would mow twice in 1 week. It is way too hot and has been way too dry. But anyway, so you've mowed twice.
I've done a fair amount of weeding. And then I
Yeah.
don't know what possessed me because I bought the landscape fabric to replace what's in the paths 2 years ago. But on the 4th of July morning, I got up
Oh,
and I started pulling out the old because it's gotten really ratty and it's a tripping hazard. So I pulled out 3/4 of it.
yeah.
And then I finished pulling it out on Friday. I'm really proud because I got it all in the trash before the trash man came.
Yeah.
But I also picked my first cucumber.
Ooh, me too. I picked three. So, what variety of cucumber did you grow this year? Do you remember?
So I'm growing 5. And I do know Burpee Pickler, the Armenian, because you talked about it
Yeah.
last year, Straight 8, and one that I can't remember. Plus, the one I picked is called Quick Snack. And
Yeah.
it's that little kitchen mini from Burpee.
Uh huh.
And it's grown in a container. And they sent me the container, the seeds, potting soil, and a trellis. And I thought I'm going to grow it with exactly what they sent.
Uh
And
huh.
the little vines are about a foot tall. And it flowered. And son of a gun, there was a little cucumber on there. And I thought, is this done? Is this ready? And I picked it and I ate it. It was pretty good.
Sounds good. Sounds
So
delicious.
anyway,
So, your straight eight is an all American selection.
cool. I always grow straight 8s. And then Burpee Pickler's a new one for me. Armenian is a new one for me. Armenian because you suggested it or raved about it. Burpee
I
Pickler, I
did.
think, because when I was buying those seeds at Menards, they had Burpee Pickler. They might have had straight 8. And then I don't know. I could look up the other one, but I'm not gonna. How about your garden?
So, I picked my first cucumbers, and I think mine is also. So I did Armenian, and then I think I did an AAS winner, but I can't remember the name of it. And I just looked up all the AAS winners, and none of these look familiar. But it is a pickler type because it has the spines on it,
Uh-huh.
that you have to rub off. And so, but those are still really great for eating out of hand once you've taken the little spines off. They make a good eating cucumber too. It might be green light, maybe. I don't know. Those look pretty slick, but the shape looks about right. So, anyway, my Armenians have not started, doing their thing yet. They've just started barely blooming. So we'll see how they do. Let's see, what did I say in my notes? Oh, I said we were supposed to get Hurricane Barrel's remnants. Well, this is actually, it's going to happen a little later, but the cold front came down and it kind of smashed into that tropical air. And so that's been a good thing because we've had rain all morning long. And we're recording this on a Sunday. So Bill and I are going to go to church tonight. Because when I woke up at 6 a.m., I was like, I don't want to drive in that wall of water because it was a wall back then. And let's see. So lots of rain. I cut almost all of my cut flowers and brought them indoors and made them into a bouquet
Cool.
because of the rain. I was like, I'm not going to lose all these to rain. Plus, we should point out that when you cut annual flowers, what are you doing, Carol?
You're telling that flower, you aren't done for the season. More flowers, please.
More, more, more.
More,
Yes.
more, more.
So you should cut your flowers, even if you just deadhead them, because it tells it you don't ready for seed production yet. And then let's see, I'm just keep up until today when it started raining. I was just keeping everything watered, and I won't have to do that for a few days now, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah, that is nice. We did get a half inch of rain on the 4th of July, and we got a tenth of an inch of rain on Friday, and we had
Yeah.
another little bit earlier in the week. So I kind of added it up, and that mythical 1 inch of water a week, you know, and that's about what we got spread out through the week. So
Yeah, we don't normally get rain in July, but we've done it 2 years in a row, and I'm grateful. So, yay. And then I also picked tomatoes, cherry tomatoes. I did pull some of my cherry tomato plants.
I saw that on Instagram. Oh, they look terrible.
Oh, I've had more disease this year. And I've got some disease, well, not disease, actually, it's spider mite damage on my green beans. And I think part of the problem is I planted them too close together. I should have thinned them more.
Huh.
Not because I just think I should have. And then I've got some deer issues still, but not bad. The netting has worked on the deer. But here's the thing. And last night we were bringing the netting back down, and Bill goes, "Why are we doing this every day and every night?" He goes, "Why aren't you just leaving the netting in place?" And I said, "Because the bumblebees can't get in to pollinate the squash or to do all the other things they do." And he goes, and I said, "And the ones who do get in, they get trapped." And so I said, I've let out a bumblebee, a butterfly, and honestly, an assassin bug. So lots going on. What else? Oh, squash. And I think that's it. Squash,
Yeah.
cucumbers, the norm.
I picked some squash. It's still just that one variety, the plant I got from Burpee. The others they'll be coming along in another week or so. And then I'm picking the little green peppers to tell those pepper plants, this isn't it. You got a lot more producing to do.
I pulled
A-
some peppers too. Same thing.
And I pulled the first of the green onions that I started from seed. I got them out kind of late in the garden, but they're very delicious.
Oh, I pulled all my garlic and I pulled all my carrots. It has been a very bountiful year, frankly.
That is a
So,
wonderful thing.
yeah, so let's play favorites. What's your favorite?
So my favorite this week, and this is like there are an astounding number of choices out there, but I'm going
Right?
to go with something that I discovered that its common name is bush violets, and that is Brawalia, which has a blue flower and loves the shade. And I'm growing a variety called Endless Illumination from Proven Winners.
Huh. I don't know if I've grown that or not.
It's I'm growing it because my front faces north because of the crabapple tree. My front porch is shaded, so it's kind
Yeah.
of a cantankerous area to put stuff. And so I just put some Browalia in those long boxes and it's growing pretty nice. They're a little bit leggy, but I think that's because they're in a lot of shade. But it's a beautiful blue flower and it's not a color you commonly see, so that's what I'm growing.
Sounds good.
How about you?
So mine would have to be right now my perennial hibiscus. Every time this year, I am reminded that I'm glad I didn't pull out all the gold sturm, that I've let just a little bit grow, right? And
Uh-huh.
I'm always reminded that I love perennial hibiscus because those two are stars of the hot sunny garden. And we got a lot hot sun left. So I grow several varieties. I have to say that Summerific series from Proven Winners, I have Holy Grail, and then I have the white one with the reddish pink stripes in the middle. And they're just both fabulous. They have that dark foliage. I sent you a photo of them earlier this week,
I saw
which
that.
I'll put in the newsletter. And I just think they're beautiful and they attract pollinators and they can handle sun and heat. What's not to like? And they
What
come
is not
back.
to like? Yeah. I you know what? I don't know why I don't have perennial hibiscus. They do
I
come
don't
back here
either.
reliably, but I think it's because I planted it sort of in the wrong spot and then I was moving it anyway. Let's talk about the question of the week and not Carol's failures.
Dee has plenty this week too. So our question of the week is, can you recommend some flowers that love shade and do well in pots? And I got this question on Instagram actually, and you and I came up with a bunch,
Yes, we came up with impatiens and sun patience, coleus of all kinds.
which isn't necessarily floral. You don't grow it for the flowers. And I want to stress that, and I did to her too, that a lot of these plants are grown for their leaves.
They are
Keep going.
caladiums. We'll talk about
Yep.
that in a little bit. Elephant ears,
Yep.
begonias, and I wrote fibrous rooted, and you're like, what is fibrous rooted? That's the little begonias they sell as annuals, and they're called fibrous rooted because they don't have that tuber or whatever
Oh,
that
yeah, the
growth.
tuberous begonias.
Yeah,
So here we just call those begonias. And then if we refer to the tuberous begonias, we say tuberous. So it's a regional thing.
I
Okay, so
guess.
regular begonias. And of those, my favorite is the big begonias series. And I've only seen it at, let me think, I've seen it at Lowe's and Home Depot, and you really have to look for it. And then there's the angel wings, which I think are just gorgeous, and the Bolivian begonias. And Carol wrote in here, we should do a whole episode on begonias. And I think we should because we don't talk about them enough, and they're just great plants.
Yeah, and one other begonia I would add is the canary wing begonia, which remember when that
Yes,
thing hit the market with the yellow chartreusey leaves, people went yah bananas over them.
they did. It's about the color of a banana, and I actually grow it. And I overwinter it in the greenhouse. So then there's Torenia, which no one ever thinks about. The only it's also called clownflower. The only negative I can see to Torenia is that deer love to eat it, like
Oh,
love to eat it. So I would not put it anywhere where you have deer pressure, but it is a gorgeous, gorgeous flower for shade.
and then I would add the Browalia, which actually has blue flowers.
Yep.
And Endless Illumination is the variety I have. It's from Proven Winners, also very beautiful. And I will say this at the greenhouse, she does a good job. Anything that grows in shade, she groups together in one spot in the greenhouse. So when people say what grows in shade, it's like, okay, everything on this side of the table grows in shade. And
Hmm.
then for hanging baskets, if it grows in sun, it's in a white basket. And if it grows in shade, it's in a green basket.
That's really brilliant because here I will say Markham's Nursery does the best job of that. They're in Norman, and also the greenhouse in Norman, which that's the name of it, the greenhouse. Both of those do a really good job of grouping all their shade plants together and all their sun plants together. And there's a whole greenhouse of shade plants in at Markham's, which is one of my favorite nurseries run by the Markham family. Okay, why don't you do that quote?
Make room for what matters, let go of what doesn't. It's that simple. And that is Robert Teu, Teu. I don't know who he is. Very interesting. Come on. So our flower this week, like you alluded to, is caladiums, which isn't really a flower. It's a leaf.
It is a leaf. And I went and did a little research on caladiums because I was curious why we have so many new varieties
Uh-huh.
and why they're so pretty the last few
Oh
years.
my gosh, they're gorgeous.
They're not like the caladiums my grandparents grew. And that my aunt grew really ugly caladiums in her very shady backyard, but that's all she had options for. And so it used to be you could do white and green or red and green, maybe. I don't even know if there was red, and maybe a little bit of a pink. But now there's ones that range from almost white with pink centers all the way to dark green with white edges and reds, and even one that's got it's chartreuse, and it's actually the caladium of the year according to the National Plant of the Year group, and that's Heart to Heart Lemon Blush Caladium. It's pretty. I've grown it.
That does sound nice. Now, remember, we did talk about caladiums once because I think it was Proven Winners or somebody is trying to make caladiums into a Christmas plant because they do have some with the red and green and white foliage, which is Christmas, obviously.
Well, and one of the things in my research I found out is that Florida is the only source for caladiums, that all caladiums are grown in Florida, which I was like shocked. And this is according to his name. He's a scientist and he's at the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And I can't pronounce, I'm probably going to butcher his name, but it's Zanao Ding. And he said that they are the only source for caladium bulbs in the world. And there are several farms in Florida. So it would make sense to turn them into Christmas plants because they can grow them all year long as long as they have
Sure,
enough sunlight, right?
sure.
And they don't take that much sunlight. So the UFIFAS has been working really hard to create new ones. And he introduced four new varieties this year, one of which I think I'm growing. And then the other big breeding operation is classic caladiums. And they're the ones who are working with Proven Winners to create the Heart to Heart series because it makes sense. They have heart shaped
Right.
leaves, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So I've grown some of those. I've grown some of the ones from from University of Florida, and the 2024 Pantone Color of the Year. There is a caladium. Remember, the color of the year was kind of that peach.
Yes.
They've had a breakthrough, and it's called Chinook, and it is supposed to be peach. I've not grown it this year, but I grew. So I ordered Scarlet Pimpernel, Gypsy Rose, and Frida Hempel this year as bulbs. And you don't want to plant them until your soil temperature is 70 degrees or they'll rot.
Well, I'm going to just say Scarlet Pimpernel, Gypsy Rose, and Frida Hempel sounds like a vaudeville show.
It does sound like a vaudeville show. And so I was enjoying waiting for those to come up, which takes a while. Or you can start them indoors if you have a greenhouse, but you got to convince them to send them to you. And then because they're all like, oh, I'm not sending them to you yet because it's not warm enough. And you're like,
Right.
I have a place to grow them. I can get a head start. That's okay. And so then Terracotta Nursery in Guthrie had a ton of them. And
Oh,
so I bought a bunch more from them too. So I am caladium poor.
I bought one, and it's because I was at this other garden center place, and this thing had a leaf that was like a foot long on it, and I'm like, that is a beautiful caladium. So I bought it, and then, I eventually had to cut that leaf off because it started to get brown and everything. But they are very tempting when you see them, very tempting. But I just have the one.
And they're beautiful in the shade, which was what we were talking about earlier. So here's the easy way to grow them. They need good drainage. They like
Yes,
compost heavy soil. So you can use shredded leaves or other rich compost for them. I'd also put some in the hole as you're planting them. They also like water, a lot of water. And I water mine 3 times a week with my irrigation system, and they hate the cold.
that's
So
right.
you either need to dig them up in our climates and bring them indoors or just start anew. And a lot of people, when they came on the garden tour, said, what are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I like to grow different colors every year. So like next year, I might want to do the orange and chartreuse ones. Who knows? So
Yeah,
I don't
because
know.
the one thing I was thinking about, the orange and chartreuse is going to completely clash with the traditional caladium colors of pink and red and green.
Yeah, and I've done both. The orange and chartreuse ones look really great with some of the Suncoleus varieties,
Uh-huh.
as do the red, pink, and green. It just depends on which one you choose. So if you're going to grow them from tubers, this is information from our friend Steve Bender at Southern Living Magazine. And people always ask me, as an aside, when I say they're our friend, is that true? And I'm like, yes, it's true. We have known Steve Bender a long time, and he's kind of hilarious, as evidenced by his columns. But this is a serious column. So you wait until soil temperatures are 70 degrees before you plant them or you start them indoors. Amend your soil if needed to improve drainage or the richness of the soil. Richer soil, you get more leaves, which is all of this is about, right?
Yes.
So you want to do the next one?
Well, you're going to plant it about 2 inches deep with the eyes facing upward. And then they said large tubers should be planted in the ground at least 8 inches apart so they have room to grow. Smaller ones can be grouped together more tightly in the ground or in containers.
Which I have a gorgeous container of caladiums that I bought. I could have planted it, but I just went ahead and bought it, and it's beautiful out front. And then you're going to cover them and water them well, and you keep the soil evenly moist the same way you would if you had just planted seeds there and
Uh-huh.
you were trying to get the seeds to germinate, but you don't want to saturate it. And then foliage should appear in 6 to 8 weeks, but sometimes it's earlier, especially if it's warmer. And that's from Steve Bender.
That is good advice. Now, here's Carol's advice. In
Okay.
Indiana, just wait until they're for sale in the greenhouses and
Yeah.
then find the ones you like the pretty leaves of and you buy those. And so then I think you would have to be Dee Nash or an aficionado of caladiums to want to try to grow those tubers yourself early
Oh,
in the
really?
spring.
Oh, well, see, well, you don't do it early in the spring. You do it late spring, early summer.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the greenhouse.
Oh, well, yeah, in the greenhouse. But here's the thing. I think, buying them as plants, as long as you don't want something special, then just be sure to plant them in, as Carol did, a one, because she wanted that one bold focal point, or plant them in threes and fives, because if you want a river of caladiums like I did. I
Yes.
probably have 20 plants right now.
And so that is a good question whether you're going to try to dig some of those up and overwinter. The greenhouse is only so big. And so, you got a lot of choices that you're going to have to start thinking about here in another month or two, Dee. I don't want to put any pressure on you. I don't want to overburden you with responsibilities, but those caladiums are going to die if you don't take them in. I'm just saying.
They are, and it might be okay. Except for I really like the green ones. I'll do a picture.
Do a
You guys
picture
won't
for the
believe how pretty
newsletter.
they are. They're
Do
just
a
so
picture.
beautiful.
Okay, I want to
Hey,
see it. Do a quote. Let's talk about vegetables now.
for still, there are so many things I have never seen in every wood in every spring. There is a different green. J.R.R. Tolkien, like my caladiums.
And that speaks to me because, as you know, green is my favorite color.
It is your favorite color, and it's the predominant color in nature. And they've discovered that people need green in their lives, that
Um, yes,
we are conditioned for shades of green, and our eyes, human eyes, pick up more shades of green than any other creature.
that is extremely interesting, Dee. And I remember once, and I don't know if I was wearing two greens that somebody thought didn't match, but somebody said, not every green matches, Carol. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway,
Like, really? I mean, that person's picky. Okay, what are we talking about in our vegetable topic?
we're talking about garlic.
Yay.
And where did the title "Never Enough Garlic"? Oh, that came from the Kitchen Gardener magazine. That was the
It
name of the
did.
article, and
It is.
I have put the article away, so I can't really reference it right now.
Let me see if I can find it for you while you discuss garlic.
So garlic is something that people are surprised how easy it is to actually grow your own garlic.
So easy.
So easy. So in my neck of the woods, and I use that pun intentionally, we would plant our garlic in the fall, and we
Yep.
would plant primarily hardneck garlic because it is hardier than the softneck garlic. And you're giving me a look. Did I get that backwards? No, that's right.
No, I'm giving you a look because my best friend just texted me and I thought, oh, I didn't turn on Do Not Disturb.
Ah, so anyway, so you would plant in the fall, and I would plant, and around here, I'd probably shoot for early October. You could plant a little bit later, but early October, and you plant a clove, and a clove will give you a big garlic bulb next year. So you can really plan out how much garlic you want because every clove becomes a big bulb.
Right.
You stick it in the ground, a couple inches deep, not terribly deep, not terribly shallow, and then let it go. And in the spring, the green shoots will come up.
Yep.
And then if they attempt to flower, you cut that out because you don't want the thing to flower. You want it to produce a really big bulb down there. And then
Yep.
when you get a couple of the leaves as they come up the stem, you get some of the leaves start to die off. Then you say, oh, it's the end of June, early July. I think I will dig my garlic. And then you carefully dig it out. And for every clove you planted, you've got a brand new bulb full of garlic. Yum, yum.
Did
How'd
you
I do?
you did great. Did you mention fertilizing it with some compost in the early spring?
You can side dress with some compost in the early spring just to give it a nice little kick in the pants to get going.
So I didn't have success with garlic in Oklahoma until I started doing that. So I side dress with some compost or some worm. I can't think of the word. It's worm casings. That's not right. Worm
Castings.
poo castings. I was like, I can't think of that word. Worm castings. I use those sometimes. And in Oklahoma, you can grow soft neck garlic or hard neck garlic. But why would you grow soft neck garlic? Because you can buy that in the store, even
Right.
organic. And here you can hardly ever find hard neck garlic in the store. And there's so many varieties.
There are. And this is where you need to go. So the time to order garlic is right now. And so I'm
Right
starting to get
now.
emails and garlic's ready to order. So be careful how much you order because they're going to send you a bulb and the bulb's going to have, I don't know how many cloves on it.
Six to eight.
You're going to break it off into the cloves and then you're going to want to, like we said, plant each clove separately. I don't know, 6 inches apart or so, something like that. I just
Yeah, about
guessing.
6 inches. That's about where I do. 6 to 4, 4 to 6.
And then the other thing too is when you harvest, you want to let that lay out on a dry day and when you get the dirt off of it and you can wash the dirt off very carefully and then you want it to sort of naturally dry off so when you store it you're storing it with that outer casing is dry and
Yep.
then you'll have less rot and depending on the variety you can store it for like 6 to 9 months and the temperature you're
Yeah.
storing it at and it'll keep for quite a while.
Right. And you just store it at room temperature. And that process that you just described is called curing. And you literally lay the bulbs out on a screen or on something where they won't get wet inside, like your garage, and just let them sit there until they're dry. And then you can start using it. You can also use it fresh if you want to take one, bulb
Mm-hmm.
into the house. And on the bottom of each one of those cloves is a basil plate, just like on any bulb. And you want to just plant that down basil plate on the bottom, pointy side up. It's really easy. I think everyone should grow garlic. It's not hard. It makes a good border plant for other plants because nothing eats it. Nothing.
Yeah, I don't know anything that eats garlic or any pests or anything. Now, here's the
Mm-mm.
thing, if you grow in garlic and you're digging that out late June, early July, you now have a bare spot in your garden. So go ahead and plant another row of green beans, for example.
Bush
Um,
beans.
bush beans that'll help nourish the soil and it might give you some bush beans before the end of the season. So that's something that I would definitely do is replant that area. And if you're not going to plant bush beans, then think about a cover crop. And we don't want to go into cover crops, but that bare ground will be all weedy if you don't plant something in it.
Yes. Or I guess if you don't want to plant anything, although we are always trying to maximize our space, you could just put down a nice, 1.5 inch, 2 inch layer of mulch if you
Yeah,
wanted to.
that's
It
true.
needs to be biodegradable mulch. So garlic is fun.
It is fun. Now, here's the thing. So the garlic that they're putting into those long braids to store them, that's soft neck.
Yeah, it is. And also, softneck does survive longer and store longer than hardneck garlic. That's why it's used in the store so much.
And then the other thing is, I would not plant garlic that I'd purchased at the store, A, because it's common, B, because it may be a variety that's from China, especially if it's in a little box or something. I would not
Yeah,
plant any of that. It may also have been treated to keep it from sprouting. I don't know
right.
if they
Like
treat it.
potatoes.
So don't get yourself some good garlic if you're going to grow it. Some good
And
garlic.
somebody's going to ask us where we buy our garlic. There are lots of places to buy it now. Territorial Seeds has it. Pine Tree Seeds has it. I mean,
Burpee's got them. Botanical Interest has them. Johnny's Selected Seeds has them. Eden Brothers has, I think
Eden
Eden Brothers.
Brothers. And by the way, we have affiliate links for a few of those. So if you want to go down to the bottom and use our affiliate link, it costs you nothing.
Now, before I do this quote for the book, I want to just apologize. If we had been a little better, we might have actually researched a few varieties to grow. But we didn't. So you're just gonna have to pick your own.
And the truth is, I just pick my own. I don't grow the same garlic year after year.
Yeah.
I do
And
like
then
the purple ones, so I grow those.
I have one other thing to say. Somebody's gonna say, well, what about elephant garlic?
That's a whole different animal.
It is. It's actually a leek. So let's move on to the book quote.
But try it if you want to.
You knock yourself out. We are like books. Most people only see our cover. The minority read only the introduction. Many people believe the critics. Few will know our content. Emile Zola. I think we've used that before, but it is a good one.
Yeah, and I think it's Emile, but I don't know. Anyway, Emile Zola, and it's a good one. It fits the truth. How many? I think that happens more now than ever, don't you? Everybody's so
I
rush,
do.
rush, rush. Okay, on the bookshelf, this was your idea because you bought this book and I borrowed it from the library.
Yes. And so this is The Roots of My Obsession 30 Great Gardeners Reveal Why They Garden, edited by Thomas C. Cooper. And the reason I ended up finding out about this book is I think I knew about it before, but I never had a copy. But Thomas C. Cooper was the editor of the Gardener magazine that we were talking about last week. And somebody in GardenCom over on that community forum where I was active said he was the editor of this book. And I thought, oh, I want this book. And I looked up who some of the gardeners were. And this thing came out in I want to say,
95, maybe?
I'm going to tell you here in a minute. Well, it's
Okay,
from
while
Timber
she,
Press.
yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know.
Okay,
I can't
while
find
she
it.
does this, I'm going to guess it's about 95 because a lot of the authors that are in it, the gardeners, they have books coming out at the same time from Timber Press, is what I noticed. And it was
Okay,
all like
we're completely
1995.
wrong. This
But
book
when was
came
it?
out in 2012.
No, there's no way. That has to be a reprint.
Well, maybe I have the soft cover version. I don't know. It says it
It
came out
has
in
to be a reprint.
2012.
And here's why, because everybody's got a book from 95. It's none of their new books. So just go on and say who it is while I look it up online.
Well, I got something else to say. You know our friend Susan Applegate Hurst?
Yeah,
She did the design for this.
I'm not surprised.
So anyway,
It does say 2012, but that just seems weird to me. It has to be it cannot be when it originally came out, but because you would think that, like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. The point is, it's a book with a lot of famous people, a lot of famous gardeners, especially from the 90s, and a lot of them are still famous. I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but there's Fergus Garrett in there. Name some of the others because I read it on Hoopla.
Penelope Hobhouse is in there, Tova Martin. And if you read, we have several of her books on our shelves.
Love Tova. Very nice
Tova.
person.
Julie Moore Maservi, which we both
Yep.
met her in Buffalo. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Anna Pavard, the tulip. Margaret Roach, she has that great podcast, A Way to Garden, always has interesting guests. Here's one, Claire Sawyers. Do you know who she is?
I don't know Claire Sawyers.
I think I know who she is. I think she's the one who was like a senior at Purdue when I was maybe a sophomore, and she was like the professor's pet in
Uh
when
huh.
on the trees and shrubs and everything, and so she was held up as a standard for the rest of us. But she's been the longtime director at the garden, and you went to it last year in the fling, the college. Oh, help me out.
I did not go to Fling last year. I had to
2 years
cancel.
ago. 2 years
2 years
ago.
ago, where did we even go?
You
You're
went
hitting
to
me up
the
with this
I
like out
hit
of nowhere. Oh, in Pennsylvania.
yes, I
That's the
thought that
one
was
in
last
Pittsburgh.
year.
It was last
S-
year. That was right after I got diagnosed. Oh,
Swarthmore College.
yeah, we
The
went there.
Scott Arboretum. That's where she is.
I
But she
didn't go to that garden though. I went and had breakfast instead. Sorry.
anyway, each and let me see if there's any others. Paige Dickey, we've read her book. Helen Dillon from Ireland. I heard her speak this in the 90s, I think. Absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, she
S-
was great, and her piece in there was great too. So reading this book made me really think about something, and it was from Julie Moore Maservi's essay. Okay, are you a mind gardener or a dirt gardener? Okay, so a mind gardener, they plan everything in their head. They can see visually in their mind what things are going to look like, et cetera, et cetera. And dirt gardeners just want to be out there in the thick of it. And so I asked you that question, and I'm also asking our listeners, and we'll put it in the newsletter too. So, what do you think, Carol? Are you a mind gardener or a dirt gardener?
well, after you describe those, I think I'm a bit of both because I'm always looking at landscapes and thinking I wouldn't have done that or I would do this or I would, in my head, I'm replanting or thinking about something. And actually, I used to have a mug at work that said, it might look like I'm listening, but I'm really thinking about gardening.
Right.
And then, but I'm also a dirt gardener because I like to get out there and do the gardening.
Yeah. Well, I'm both too. I wouldn't be a very good garden coach if I couldn't look at people's landscapes and think about how we can make them look better. But I really do like to be out there in the thick of it, preferably not in the middle of July with all the bugs, but it is what it is. So what Julie was saying in her essay is that she's a mind gardener and that her mother is a dirt gardener.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. It was one of my favorite essays, although I loved Helen Dillon's essay. Fergus Garrett's was wonderful, of course. There were just a lot of really it's
Yeah.
a very fun, put it next to your bedside book, read a few essays, go to sleep and think of beautiful things.
Yeah. A few more authors that are in there is Rosalind Creasy,
Yep.
Sydney Edison.
I love Sydney and we've never met. I love her. And I also think Rosalind's essay was beautiful because it was about how her garden changed the way she dealt with her neighborhood and the children.
Yes, she's
It
a
was
lovely
beautiful.
person. And
Yeah.
I had a conversation with another GardenCom member who's helping Rosalind out. Rosalind's in her 80s now, but she's written a new book about a pet rooster and she's trying to get
Fun.
that published. And so they were asking me about self-publishing and I said, Rosalind Creasy, what publishing house wouldn't want to put out a book by her?
Did you know that one time, anyway, never mind. She's a neat person and
She
I
is.
would publish anything Rosalind wrote. I don't
The
care
other
what it
one
is.
in here is Amy Stewart, who's
Yep.
written Wicked Plants, The Drunken Botanist. She has a book coming out next
A
month
new
on
one.
tree collectors. We've both ordered it, I think.
Yes. And we're going to she's having a book launch party that's by Zoom, and we're going to go to that too. So Amy's really, really good about getting the word out there and thinking about gardening in different ways. And she's been very successful. She had her newsletter was something about a film crew coming to visit. I haven't read it yet. Sometimes
Yeah. Well, no,
I save them.
she's going to be on some national, I'm going to suggest CBS Sunday Morning or something.
Good
She's
for
going to be
her.
interviewed. She said it took 3 days of filming to get it just right. And it just sounds so interesting. Amy tells wonderful stories. So, anyway,
Amy, I got a funny story about Amy. So the very first time I spoke at GardenCom, I was on a panel with Amy and three other people that scared. No, Amy scared me the most. Susan Harris was on there too, and I love Susan Harris.
Uh-huh.
And Doug Green was on there, and it was little
Uh-huh.
old me, and it was
Uh-huh.
my first time to speak really. And it was about, I don't know what it was about, probably blogging or whatever. But then, so I'm scared to death of Amy Stewart because she's pretty intense. She's really nice, but I didn't know yet. And so I get on the bus, and all of a sudden, this redhead plops down next to me, and it's her. And I'm like, oh my God, please don't sit next to me. And so I just had to play it really cool the whole time. She just sat and talked and chattered and all this stuff. And I was like, but she's very intense. And when she asks you a question, she wants a real answer, right? And so she just scared me to death. And
Yeah.
I still have that feeling every time I run into her at something. I'm like, oh, there's Amy. And she's always nice to me. It's
Oh,
just, she
she's the
scares
nice.
me.
I've
She
I've
is the
talked to her.
nicest.
I've talked to her several times at Garden Com events and I don't know, maybe a fling or something, but she couldn't be any nicer and any more
She
helpful
couldn't.
she couldn't be. Anyway,
Right. But don't you agree that she's really intense? That's why she's so, I think that's why she's so good at research.
yes. But anyway,
Okay.
the book
So,
is The Roots of My Obsession 30 Great Gardeners Reveal Why They Garden, edited by Thomas C. Cooper. And as we now know, it came out in 2012. Sadly, you can only buy used copies, so we have only included an Amazon link. But we did
yeah.
like it. Or you got it from your library.
Yeah, I did. And I've read almost all of it. I really enjoyed it. Shall I do the next quote? This is going to be a
Yes.
long episode. And it's on my shirt. I'm wearing my t-shirt that says this morning. I am going to make everything around me beautiful. That will be my life. And that's by Elsie DeWolf. And I think that's what we gardeners try to do. So our dirt was very, very interesting. And it was actually on CBS News. And I found it, and I don't, oh, it was on Saturday morning. I sometimes watch CBS Saturday morning. And it was about cultural burning. And it is about this Native American tribe that are in California, right outside the city. And I had never heard the term cultural burning before. Have you heard it?
I had not heard it either, but it was an interesting article about how they're returning to this practice.
They are. I mean, I knew that Native American Indian tribes burned various parts of the prairie for a lot of reasons, but this is the forest. And it also, this article talked about how this tribe had for centuries pruned all of the trees, the native trees in the area, and they pruned them for an open canopy and their oak trees. And part of that was for harvesting acorns. And you can make flour out of acorns. There's a lot of things you can make out of acorns. And so there are all these trees in their land which they bought back from the state. They didn't ask for it to be given. They purchased it. So this tribe purchased it back, and they're returning it to fire. And the hope is that they will help save the big city next door. I think this is outside, I want to say Sacramento, but I might be wrong. Anyway, it's the hope. There's several hopes. One is that they can teach people about foraging and how their tribe does various things, but also to save them from fire because, yeah, it's outside Sacramento. And it was just the best article. And so we thought we would link to it and let people go read it for themselves because the tribe was just, they were such cool people and very excited about this new chapter in their lives.
Cool. We'll leave a link to it. Now do a quote. We'll talk about rabbit holes.
Okay.
Joy does not simply happen to us. We have to choose joy and keep choosing it every day. Henry Nouwen.
Yeah. Very famous priest who wrote really wonderful books before he passed away. So my rabbit hole was that I did research on caladiums, and I was just wondering why there were so many new beautiful ones on the market. And now we know.
Very nice. And my rabbit holes, did some research on delphiniums because I am really going to try to grow some delphiniums and make that my life's mission, I guess, to try to grow some great big tall ones. I made Dee laugh while she was drinking her soda there. Sorry about that.
Oh, my water, my sparkling water. That's the
And
closest thing I get to soda.
And then that's all I ever drink anymore, sparkling
It's
waters.
just
Anyway,
delicious.
yeah. Also, my next Lost Lady of Garden Writing, the last one, Alice T.A. Bush, she took a lot of research and, a lot of dead ends. So I've chosen one that's going to be pretty easy, but also one I don't think anybody's reading her books. But so I did some research on that coming out on
And you
Wednesday.
will tell us about her when it gets closer, right?
Yes. Yes, I will.
Cool.
All I'm going to say is I am a sucker for a book that says illustrated by the author.
Nice. Yeah, me
So,
too.
so now our garden commissions.
Yeah, so I'm going to write out the storm, which is almost done. Now we're just getting really gentle rain, and I'll just see what needs doing afterwards. I need to put on my tick clothing and go out there and just start taking out all those daylily scape stems and just, sprucing everybody up and cutting back the roses. It's that time of year. And hopefully this next week it won't be so hot. And it has been so, so hot this week. But today is pure bliss. Right now it is only 78 degrees.
So it's in the low 80s here. I'm taking today off from the garden. It's Sunday.
Me too.
Monday's garden club. Tuesday, the rest of the landscape fabric that I need arrives. I had to order from Home Depot because I bought that stupid fabric 2 years ago to put out there to replace the other. That's how on the ball I am. And so
Okay.
I didn't have
That's the
quite
way it
enough,
goes.
and I had to find the exact brand. And it's like, oh, I bought that at Costco. Costco's not selling it anymore. Oh, Home Depot. So that
So you
arrives.
found it. Good.
I'm gonna finish all that. It's supposed to be hot tomorrow, hot Tuesday, rain on Wednesday. The rest of the time, it's the mowing, the weeding. Like you said, I've got daylily scapes to pull. I've got stuff just to, you know, has finished its time. By the end of the week, I will have done the Garden Bloggers Bloom Day post because that's this middle of the month already. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I got to get plants for my new container.
So I'm looking at my map on it's my local news 9, and I'm looking at the radar map, and I can see the hurricane churning right down by Corpus Christi. So I guess it's going to make landfall between Corpus Christi and Monterey, it looks like, and it might go
Wow.
straight up. And it might actually just give us a glancing blow, but we got this storm that came with that cold front, which I'm really grateful for.
Well, I
So
think the
that's
rain on Wednesday might be Beryl.
it might
So
be.
drying out finally and just, its last little bit over us. So we'll see.
We'll see. Let's wrap this up.
Thank you for listening to The Garden Angelist. I hope you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. We publish every week on Wednesdays at 12 a.m. Eastern Time.
If you subscribe to our free Substack newsletter, The Garden Angelist at substack.com, you get a link to listen to the podcast a whole day early.
And if you want to help support us, use those affiliate links. If you buy something after clicking through on them, we're in small commission and it costs you nothing.
Or if you want it, you can set up a monthly subscription through Buzzsprout or make a one-time donation through PayPal.
And thank you to everyone who has already done so. It helps us pay for podcast hosting,
which isn't cheap. It was lovely to chat with all of you over the Garden Gate. Bye until next week.
Bye, everybody.